Welcome to another episode of the Young Entrepreneurs Network podcast. The guest we've got on today is Ryan Quinn, a specialist of many different areas: property, finances, also a financial advisor, but a couple of side hustles coming up as well, mate, which I'm sure we're going to discuss, man. But Ryan, firstly, thank you for coming on, mate. Do you want to tell the guests tell the listeners a little bit about yourself, mate?
Firstly, thanks very much for inviting me along today. I hugely appreciate it. A bit about myself, so early 30s, financial advisor, full-time business, financial advice. Came through, into this business through property investments, kind of around my mid-20s, got involved in property investing. And then again, before that, I was involved in sports coaching, sports development. That's what I've done at uni. And I had a business running football coaching classes and events and that as well for kids. So it's kind of started, I think everything for me started around exiting uni life and figuring out, right, now it's the real world. How do I make my money? And then it's all progressed through in the last maybe 10, 12 years to where I'm at just now.
Love that, mate. So walk us through the start of the football coaching business, what that kind of looked like, how it started, and then obviously the purpose of it starting as well, because it very much started as something on the side of your job. So walk us through how that kind of started, mate.
Well, again, it was one of those ones where you're at school and it's like the teachers when you're second and third year are like, you've got to know what you want to do now or you're never going to make it in life. So I think that with that and the fact that I always used to get it drummed in from my gran and my mum that do something that makes you happy, that you enjoy. So I'm like, I like playing football. I like, coaching the kids. Let's put them both together. So that's kind of where it started from. It was just that what makes me happy and go for there. So I done that college, university, sports degree. From that, I then realised while I was doing my sports degree, a lot of other people in either the college courses or the university courses I was on were working in Morrison's and, retail work. And I was like, well, if I'm doing this at uni, I may as well put it to use. So I got involved in, Falkirk Football Club when I was at Stirling Uni, the SFA, different kind of performance schools around football. And then what I realised what I realised is that a lot of parents were, without sounding arrogant or egotistical here, a lot of parents were only wanting to come to the classes I was running. So I kind of thought I must be doing all right here with the kids and the football, and I really enjoyed it. So then from that I went travelling for a year after uni. But while I was travelling, I really enjoyed it, but I kind of felt like I wanted to get home, and I had this burning desire to go out on my own and put my own stamp on the football coaching thing at that time. Again, very early 20s. So that's where the football coaching business came. And then again, from about early 20s, I had to get a full-time job as well, because this business, it was kind of a dip my toe in the water with business, and it was kind of part-time. So I had to get myself a full-time job. But the business then in the next maybe 5 to 6 years grew from one class a week, which I started it very much just with 3 to 5 year olds. So a lot of the market I saw in the community space in football was from 5-year-old up. So I thought, well, there's a wee target market there, that a wee niche that people aren't hitting. So I started with 3 to 5 year olds, one class a week, a Saturday morning, 9 till 10, and then grew that from it was probably just before COVID hit, to about 150 kids a week, classes every night, 5 coaches at one time in the business doing classes for me. So I got it to a pretty substantial level for it being a part-time business. But with that came the pitfalls that is business, time, money, and all the rest of it. And I kind of feedback looped from that this isn't maybe sustainable and there's other ways.
Makes sense, mate. What do you think was the catalyst for you being able to scale it over that kind of 5 to 6 year window? Was there a strength that you were leaning on, or is there something that really sticks out for you that you think was the reason for you to get it to that level part-time?
The service, the quality of service that I was providing. Which another pitfall in business is, and it has to happen at some point, you have to outsource and kind of leave that control element and let other coaches come on to then grow it as well. But I think to start with the level of service that I knew I could provide, because I already had that feedback from doing the classes at uni, that I knew coming into this business, it wasn't going to be a 1 or 2 class a week type thing. It was going to grow quick, and word of mouth, especially with parents and kids, spreads quickly. So I think the level of service, the attention to detail, personable with the kids and the parents. And again, this isn't just a sports type thing. This is business in general.
Yeah.
Having those kind of interpersonal skills and people skills, you can let other people grow your business for you in a way.
Yeah, 100%, mate. See, in terms of those first couple of hires then, like bringing the coaches in and stuff like that, was there a process for that, or was it literally just a matter of like you found some good guys that were good at football and you just kind of brought them in that you felt like were coachable? Or
again, it was probably one of those ones where it's like, right, I can't keep doing this myself because I'm literally working every day and then every night. Saturday mornings grew from the 9 to 10 class to 9 till 3. So I was doing a full day, and then I was sleeping from 3 o'clock to Monday type thing. So it just wasn't sustainable. So I knew something had to change, and I knew that just in general that business grew with bringing people on. So it was very much probably just Google, how do you bring on you know, it was like get onto Google and how do I do this? So you put things on the kind of free job markets and put job kind of advertisements out that way. The space I was in anyway, I was around coaches and people from previous, so I had a network of who I could bring in, and I was involved in a community club at the time as well, in East Rain, so I know I could have had networks there as well that I could bring coaches in, so I did, and a few of them worked well. A few times I had to kiss some frogs and you know, let them, but that again is just the nature of business, and you get to that point. So
very much the case, mate. I guess like walk us through how, obviously you said like COVID kind of put a little bit of a stop to that. Obviously then you transitioned into like property, financial advisory. So walk me through like the kind of decision making process of wanting to come away from that business and something like property.
Yeah, again, I kind of say COVID was the catalyst that it probably wasn't. That's me making an excuse up type thing. I probably had that a couple of years before. I could feel myself not enjoying it, but it just wasn't where my head was at anymore. I think when I was getting further into my 20s and I was like, I'm making decent money, but I also then realised I saw friends around me that had their own businesses and were doing very successful, and I think I realised that my price point's quite low just for the nature of the business that I'm in. The value that you place on this type of business is low in terms of your customers, the parents, not the kids. And if I'm doing classes for 3 and 5 year olds, the value of that is £5 a head, you know, for an hour. That's it. That's all I could charge. And you can only have X amount of kids in a class, etc., etc. And that's why you had to grow it class wise. So I was seeing friends that, in a way, they were in other businesses and industries where price points were £100, £200 an hour. And I was like, and again, it's not all about the money, but at the same time, I was like, I got to a point where all my time was going to working in business, and I was burning out. I think I had burned out twice in my 20s that I was just completely done and had to take a week off type thing, all the rest of it that comes with burnout. So something had to change that way. And again, a friend of mine was involved and had been involved in property since we were at uni. I never took any interest, didn't know what he was doing. I thought at uni the properties I was renting were the government. I didn't know there were private landlords. I didn't understand that. So when he spoke to me about what I did in property, and I weighed up time versus money in terms of I could get a lot of time back and putting it into a higher price point, it might be worth putting my focus over here. So I did do that while the classes were still running. But then I've got a full-time job, part-time business that's every night, and then trying to go out and do viewings and buy properties. So something had to give. So the classes did start to wane down before COVID even hit, which was just a natural way of kind of exiting, I suppose.
What did the kind of conversation go like around the people that you were within your network that were already in property? Did you just reach out to them and just be like, look, man, I'm wanting to get out of what I'm currently doing? Like, how did that kind of work?
I had nobody in the property. I had my pal Craig, who was investing in property at the time, and he helped me as much as he could in terms of, this is what you should look at, this is what a home report is, this is what the value of this is. And I was like, what? I didn't even know that you had to get a solicitor and then, or go out and see an estate agent, have a solicitor. I didn't realise any of the process. So I kind of, again, Googled a lot of it. How do you buy property? Blah, blah. And then again, found a kind of training company, you call it. And I know they get bad taboos, and for some reasons, quite rightly, but at the end of the day, if you've got absolutely no knowledge and you go into a couple of courses, you're going to gain knowledge from it. So that's probably where I started with the property. It was very much ground zero. Go to training courses, I went to quite a lot of networking events in Glasgow each month, 3-4 a month, one a week. And that really built up a network of people in Glasgow that were investing in property. And then I just learned through that and kind of went from there.
Yeah, because I was going to want to, I guess, like unravel, I guess, when you started to not having a network to begin with, what started to then open up for you when you started to tap into an actual network of people within property?
In terms of
like opportunities, like just general.
One thing I would say about a lot of these kind of communities, property community, health and fitness community, financial communities, in terms of that, the way I describe them is they're all positive sum games. Everyone's in there for everybody to win. There's no winners and losers. Everyone can buy property. Everyone can make money. Everyone can get healthy and fit. These are all positive sums. Unlike other communities that I could sometimes describe as zero sum games. Yeah. There is a winner and a loser. For me to win, you have to lose. Yeah. So being involved in this property community, I could see that everyone was wanting to help you out, wanting to give you advice. So that definitely helped. But I then got to a point where I still hadn't bought my first property, and it was frustrating me. And I was still saving up some money and running my businesses and putting money aside. That I then started dropping out a lot of these networking events and communities because I thought I was kind of being a bit of a leech and I wasn't providing any value back. So a while I dropped out, and then I decided to pay for a course, a couple of £1,000, thinking that would be what will get me to the point of buying one. And then probably through these types of courses, events, networks, it kind of just fell into place to the point when I got so frustrated from going to the events but not actually doing it, that I then kind of done it.
What were the things that were getting in the way from stopping you from doing it?
I suppose money to a certain degree, mindset, because again, a lot of what's described now in a lot of these property events and networking and courses is using other people's money, which again, that's a whole different conversation. But for me, I never liked the idea at the start of using other people's money because my credibility and my track record, and I've not got it. It's kind of like, right, do you know what? If I'm going to make mistakes in this, I'd rather do it with my money to start with. I want to test the water and test this business adventure to see how it works first before I then start trying to pull in other people's money. So I think and people do it now successfully from the word go, is leverage money, things like that, and can grow and scale quickly. But for me, it was never about, I suppose, growing and scaling quickly on that side of things, because again, property probably replaced the football coaching as a side hustle, a side thing. Even now, it's still very much a side thing, and I like the fact it's if it became the full-time job, probably wouldn't like it as much. So it was never about scaling or growing really quick. It was just about having another vehicle of making money that I was investing and keeping my money, an asset.
Having a foot in the game, innit?
Pretty much, yeah.
What, like that kind of time window, I guess, because I know a lot of people resonate heavily with the thought process of, cool, I've not got that undeniable proof behind me just yet, and then I'm being advised to go into maybe a role where I start to leverage other people's money, but they don't have the confidence, and there's almost a level where it's like, well, do I fake it until I make it then? But then there's fucking huge risk there because I'm using someone else's money and so on and so forth. How did you overcome that? Was it just a matter of making your own cash to the point that you could buy, or was there another way around it?
Yeah, it was. It was very simply like, again, I saw a really good quote once, and I want to make sure I get this right. Do what other people won't, so in the future you can do what other people can't. And it was kind of that. I did live, and I kind of liked that thought of living in the trenches a bit of, there was a time that I went back to travelling in my early 20s, and I was maybe 24, 25 now, so I was 3-4 years after travelling, I went back to eating pot noodles. I went back to spending absolutely no money on nothing. I was penny pinching all the time, like to the point where the mindset and my habit is I was saving up, I could save a lot. And so I was putting a lot of money aside, I would say, each month. Plus, when it got to the point where I was probably ready to buy a property, I did, thankfully at the time, get a little bit of help off my mum. So she did provide a bit of not a lot, probably 20% of the funds towards the first property, which I was grateful for. So that's what got me started. I then realised from what I was hearing online and what I was seeing in these communities that the rhetoric, the kind of storyline in property at that point was you buy below market value, you add the value, you get all your money out. And I thought, from what I was reading and hearing, that was the way you did property. There was no other way to do it. It was just that way. That was the only strategy. So when I wasn't doing that, so I bought a property and added value, got a really good rent, which I naively didn't realise how much rent I was going to make, and it was actually Probably still one of my best performing properties to date. I thought I'd done it wrong because I couldn't get all the money out. That then led me to go into the courses. I then picked up, funnily enough, because the courses were in England, I probably fell on the fact that I picked up investors from England. That, again, a quote I always say, I was speaking to one of the people down, it was a event just outside London. And they asked me, Ryan, why are you here? And I said, well, I've bought property, I'm just buying my second one, but I've done it wrong because I didn't get all my money out and blah, 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 blah. And they said, how much are you buying them for? And I said, well, I bought my first one for, I think it was 40 grand and my next one for 52. And they were like, what? And like, we can't buy car parking spaces in London for that money that you're buying property for and renting them out. And that was that kind of way of, if you find any more, let me buy them. So I was a bit like, and I didn't even realise at the time that that's now what you call sourcing. So I would kind of fell into now a sourcing type of strategy as well as bank. So I then started accumulating money through side parts of property that then let me buy the third and then remortgage and buy the fourth. And then it kind of snowballs once you get to a certain point.
I think people seriously underestimate the power of like just, obviously we hear about the compound effect all the time, but knowledge and like just showing up every single day and how that compounds into more opportunities. I'm even seeing it like reflecting on probably where I was like May of last year, where we had a chance to increase our pricing, but we decided not to. The thought process of being able to work with more entrepreneurs, gain more knowledge, be able to, I guess, generate more belief for myself, and how that's compounding now, and the knowledge that I've got, it's like completely fucking priceless just by showing up every single day. And it sounds like it very much was the case for yourself.
I think as well, it's that kind of way of just doing it. Just see when you think, oh, I could go down there, but I don't know, and it's $2.5 grand for this or $3 grand. Can I really be bothered spending that? Or just doing it, because like what you say about getting access to more entrepreneurs is they've got a network behind them, and you're just growing your network and growing the amount of people you know. And I think that was probably the thing that other people don't see. Like when I went down to one of the courses, I got up at 2 a.m. so I could get down to, I think it was just outside Peterborough for 8 a.m. So, you know, when I said to them, people were saying, oh, where have you came from? I've came from Glasgow. Oh, left at 2 to get down here, and I've drove through the night to be here for 8. Like, but some people, sometimes that's what it takes to get to where you want to go, especially if you believe in what you're doing. I think you need to have a undeniable belief in yourself that, or in what you're doing, that it's going to work eventually.
Sounds like you always done what was needed though. Like, see when you're the football coaching stuff, it's like, see so many people in this day and age, they're not willing to put in the extra shift in the evening. You were doing it fucking every day. Obviously, like you said, it wasn't sustainable over a longer time horizon, but where do you think that willingness to just do what is required came from?
Probably a work ethic that you see in your parents when you're younger. I think you always, you know, people can tell you something, but until you actually see, and it kind of ingrains into probably your subconscious. And it doesn't have to always be parents; it could be grandparents, friends. Seeing a kind of hard work ethic first, and a hard work ethic that, for instance, take my parents for example, that never complained about it, just done it. That was just the way to do it, and that's just the way you get by. So I think that first and foremost, but then also probably from a very young age, and again coming through mostly my mum, is understanding the value of my finance, what money really is. It's not an ego play, it's not a status play, it's not anything about what it actually means, and then what it can do for you going forward. I.e., I knew that property was a way to make money on the side, you know, to have a little bit extra in my pocket for me, so I had more choice and freedom. And I could see it clear as day how, and not only that, it was also the money I was putting into property wasn't going anywhere, technically. You know, it's and not only is it not going anywhere, it's potentially growing. So the value of the property is growing, plus I'm getting rental income. It just all made sense to the way my probably mindset around my finances and money was made up. So if I have to get up at 2 a.m. and drive, so be it, because I know why I'm doing it.
See, when I guess like the time periods, if I'm thinking about like how I'd worked on probably like my money mindset, see during the time period where you started to make that shift and you'd seen such like a working class, I guess, like background, and you started to get into things like property and stuff like that, how, besides just being around other people that had a different mindset to you, how did you work on that kind of money mindset improvement, I guess? Probably
through mistakes and feedback loops and trying that, and that didn't work. And again, like I said, I probably from a very early age had a pretty matter of fact outlook on money, like again through your mum and dad and the way they valued it and stuff. I understood that money probably, like I say, in my teenage years was just a form of communication.
Yeah.
It's not anything else. It's, you know, back in the day it was you could fix shoes and I had a sheep and we would trade, you know, that was the trade-off. There was no money involved.
Yeah.
Whereas these days it's actually, we need to do it through something that we both see value in. So it's this little bit of paper.
Yeah.
So I think I really, from an early age, understood money was just a form of communication.
Mm.
And then again, getting round in my 20s, figuring out what's the best way to, because at the end of the day, you know, in your schooling years, you have to go to school. There's nothing else you can do. Once you leave school, in a way between now and retirement, you have to make money because nobody's really going to do it for you if you want to be what you would class as successful. So then knowing that, I probably understood, like I say, money quite well, and then also getting away from what you're learning in school. That's a very much an earn and spend mindset.
Yeah.
So this is, how do you earn money, right? I could do it this way, business, job, employment. But now I'm getting it, what do I do with it? Well, you're taught to just spend it.
Yeah.
And I think I had a very, matter of fact, that I wanted to earn, keep and grow it.
Mm.
You know, I think I also respected my time from a very early age. If I'm giving up my time to do this, then I don't want to just go and swunk it on trainers and clothes and blah. Like, I want to keep it and do something with it.
Yeah.
So I think it's probably came from an early age, but then again, just reading, networking, talking to people that have got the same mindset, you get your views and beliefs on money become more concrete.
Yeah, because that's what I was going to say. Like when you're growing up and maybe you grow up in like a scarcity like environment or something that is driven by people working their absolute arse off, 12-hour shifts, come home, they cook dinner, like parents grow up in that kind of environment, that you start to see money as something that is scarce, that isn't something that easily accessible, and that it has a lot more, like to you, seeing it as a form of communication probably decrease the value of what, not necessarily decrease the value of it, but decrease the perception of how you've seen it. Whereas for a lot of other people, like money is the be all end all.
It's scary, isn't it?
Yeah, it's like can't get their fucking head around anything. So I guess I want to kind of maybe dig a little bit deeper on that. What would be your advice to someone that maybe looks at money in a scarcity like mindset, like that struggles to even have conversations around money? Like see, like speaking to maybe some young entrepreneurs or family, like money comes up, shut down. Don't even want to talk about it. What would you be your advice to those individuals?
I think it's natural. You know, it's not an uncommon thing to have this kind of shutdown when we talk about money. I think it's also a very British thing. You know, the times I've been across in America, they're not as shut down. With they're quite open about money and stuff and how. So I think it is quite a British culture. But I also, again, coming back to it, it's whether it's reading books, talking to people, shifting that mindset that money's not this big scary thing, that if people know that you're only making X amount, you're yourself, again, a lot of people link it to their self-worth. You know, if I'm only earning this amount, then I'm this kind of guy and I can't go to these types of places and I can't associate myself with these types of people. It doesn't work like that. Again, money's not an ego or status play. It's very much a form of communication. And in some ways, if you can have a more of a kid-like exploration on not just money, but just your life, then it's not this much of a big deal. You know, in a way, it's a game. Yeah. You know, how do I make it? Can I make it this way? Can I make it that way? I've lost a wee bit that way. Well, I won't do that again. I spent it on that. Didn't they make me feel good after I spent £400 on clothes? Still the same person living in the same. So I think it's just, you're changing your beliefs around money isn't easy, but you can.
Yeah, I think I think I've spoken about it before, and probably one of the earlier episodes, one of the first mentors I ever had was a guy called Posty. He used to be a huge, I think I've spoken to you about him before, potentially, but for anyone that's not heard this kind of story, he was a mentor. He owned like 6 companies across 2 continents, like huge property portfolio, and there was a time where I had a call with him. It was like 2 a.m, ran till 6 in the morning because he was based in Florida, and it was the only time I could get with him. And when I had a similar mindset around money, so it's really good asking these kind of questions to you to reflect, because I know that there'll be a lot of individuals in the same place that I was, and he kind of broke it down in a similar way, which was like, he put it in my language, which I think is what people, I guess, that are at that kind of higher echelon, they're really good at taking something that's maybe more complicated and put it in a simple manner. And because I played Call of Duty all the time, it was like, look at money as your scoreboard. Like, however much you've got, like the higher that you get up in the scoreboard, the more opportunities you access, the more leverage you've got. And I was like, fuck, I should probably sort this money thing out.
It makes sense, doesn't it? Yeah. Again, all excess money, if you want to call it that, or again, people talk about financial freedom, but it's a very ambiguous term. Like financial freedom to one person who earns $2,000 a month but only spends 500, you know, technically, potentially financially free because they've got it, or they're investing in money, they're investing in assets that are producing, you know, £500 a month, but they only need £500 to live. So they're technically financially, and then you've got the other one that most people think is you need to be earning 3, 4, 500 grand a year because that's covering all these massive expenses that you got in the big house and the big flashy car to be financially free. You know, it's very much, you know, it's individual to each other, and you can still be financially free on a very limited amount of money. But I also think that coming back to that and the money mindset and not talking about it and the scarcity, to get over it, I sometimes think is having a plan. Having a plan in place. I think anything I've done with the coaching businesses, the property, I planned out how I wanted it to go and how I could see it ending up and why I was doing it. And it didn't become daunting, scary when I was a couple of grand on courses and, you know, all these different things. It wasn't as big a deal because I had a plan for it. And I also probably had an open mindset that it was like a journey. I was exploring what I could do with it. Another avenue to earn it.
Without a doubt, mate. I heavily resonate with that because when I think about even Gary Wilson that I had on a few episodes ago, like when we spoke about goals after the podcast, it was like he went on his notes and it was literally just like goal of hitting like $1 million a month, and then like every single step to getting there just like laid out. And it's like people have these big goals but they don't, or maybe they do goal set but they don't lay out every step to get there, or they don't even know how they're going to get there. And it's just what you've highlighted there, like actually laying out a fucking framework.
And I also think as well, by having a high level goal and then breaking down the steps to the minute day-to-day detail takes a lot of deep thinking. And a lot of people on a day-to-day basis don't ever go that deep in their thoughts or sit down and really, you know, go through it as much. And it's hard and it's also exhausting, you know, to really get yourself down to that level where it's like an hour-to-hour day-to-day basis of reaching this high level goal. It's going to take you a year or two. Takes a lot of effort. And I think a lot of the time people get to, this is my goal, how are you going to achieve it? Oh, I'm going to do this, this and this, full stop, off they go. It's not really broken down to a point where you really know undeniably how it's going to happen.
Do you enjoy doing that process of breaking it down to an absolute T?
Yes, when I know what it is I'm going for. And I believe in what I'm going for and I know how it's going to help impact my life, my relationship, my family, whatever it is, basically coming back to your highest values. If I know it's going to really hit my highest values and it's going to make me feel happier, more purposeful, everything like that, I'll break it down to an absolute T. And don't get me wrong, that's not to say that through life and month to month and year to year, your habits, your standards, your excuses, they all come up. And it's just about bringing yourself. But I think it also then comes back to not just money, but everything. Having a self-awareness about who you are. You know, whatever you're doing, business, making money, like helping people out, you need to know who you are first and foremost. And I know it's a very cliche thing to say, but it kind of works.
It's one of those where you hear it all the time, and in the times of hearing it, like if I'm thinking about probably like my first couple of years in business, you hear stuff like that and you're like, I don't care, man. It's just,
I know who I am, it's fine.
Whereas what you're saying to me, it's like the stage that we've got within Young and Lazy, I'm very much going into playing on my strengths, probably in a more visionary like role, removing bottlenecks, improving the business, problem solving. That's why I asked that question, because I fucking love that shit, mate. I would do that every day, but like you say, it does require a lot of brain power. It requires, there's some days I'll sit and it's 6 hours on a Monday morning and spent removing one bottleneck, and it's like people aren't willing to do that, nor do they feel like they've got the time to do that, and they don't necessarily see the value of it. Whereas I think it was when I went through Alex Becker's course, he spoke heavily about the importance of actually leaning on who you actually are and not suppressing it, because when you first come into business, you kind of have to suppress, not necessarily suppress these other aspects of yourself, but you've got other shit to do that requires your attention. So I think it gets to a stage where it is a kind of sink or swim, where it's like, right, cool, I do need to hire to get these things that I'm not so good at done by someone who's actually good at them, and I can lean more on the shit that I'm good at, and the results of it, it's just fucking mental.
And I think as well though, when you come back to that kind of hiring process, I'm probably at the stage now with the financial business that I'm ready. I'll be taking on my first staff member before the end of the year. But for me to do that, and I know other people in other businesses that hire, and again, they hire very quickly, but they probably hire very quick. I feel like for me anyway, you need to know the inside out of your business to then hire somebody, to then outsource that or leverage it to the point where I want to learn as much as I can about all the different systems and things for the business, to the point that when I outsource it, I don't need to think about it again.
Yeah.
It's like when you're getting dressed in the morning, when you're making your dinner and that, I don't want to have to think about it. I want to have it planned out from the Sunday to the Sunday. So I know that on the Wednesday night when I'm struggling and I'm knackered, well, I've either made my dinner or I know what I'm making without even having to think. Same in the morning, getting dressed or whatever. Maybe put a wee bit more thought in it this morning, but do you know what I mean? It's very much up, ready, out.
Yeah.
So you can use that decision, because I think there's studies about the decision making, energy levels, and how much it takes out of your mindset and your energy making decisions. Especially when you're changing from one decision to the next very quickly.
Yeah, 100%, man. I resonate heavily with that, mate, because I think a lot of the advice I probably see just on social and stuff like that is to, I guess at the early stages where you get to a place of full capacity, or not necessarily full capacity, you get to a stage where you can probably hire, you're generating enough cash. And like some of the advice I was seeing and probably getting given was like, cool, first person you'll hire is someone to do the admin work or whatever, so that you're not having to do those low value tasks.
Yeah.
Whereas I guess like having, like you said, an understanding of like the full business scope, the full model, you start to maybe identify things as like, oh, well, shouldn't my first hire not be like a sales individual, so that when I bring in that admin individual and I'm training them up, sales doesn't then pull back because I'm not at the front line bringing in sales. And it's like, I think by being able to understand, like you said, the full shebang from top to bottom, and that was something that Andy, when he came into the business, I was big on just like, oh yeah, man, we'll hire this person, we'll outsource this person, we'll bring in this. And Andy was like, wait, like, do you even know what they're doing? And I'm like, nah, I just don't want to look at it. I just want to outsource. And he's like, mate, I'm telling you just now, you're going to look at this shit and you're going to realize it's going to take you a few hours to be able to do it to like a not bad standard. And I think he kind of opened my eyes a bit more to.
And I think for me, and why I've got that mindset was probably coming from the coaching and the coaches that I hired, either sometimes too quickly or I didn't know that in that sense, that class that well. The kids that are in the class, the parents in the class, who are the kids that you need to watch out for, all these little things. So then I was chucking a coach into these classes that I'd just set up, and they were going, oh my God, this is happening, that's happening. I'm like, well, deal with it. When I didn't actually know that part of my service really well, in a way, as one example. But I think it's you need to know enough about what you're doing before you can hire. And again, that comes back to when you're talking about planning. It's the same with your money. If you plan out your finances, what you want to achieve, where you want to get to a minute detail, and you kind of don't need to, again, a lot of my clients will say now, the advice business, they'll say, I just feel more like I've got financial clarity. I've got a lot more clarity now. I know where I'm going with it. And in a way, I don't need to think about it anymore, because what happens when you think too much about it, you get overwhelmed, and you get overwhelmed into paralysis. So you just don't do anything.
Love that, mate. So I couldn't agree more, bro. What's the, I guess, like probably a good segue into the financial business then? Like, how did that start? How did it come about? Where is that at just now?
Yeah, again, it's probably been kind of natural progressions during my 20s into this, in my early 30s, that it was, again, coaching through time versus money, moved into property through doing it, enjoying it, understanding why it was benefiting me. I then got to a point, again, I made a lot of mistakes in property over the last couple of years, tax wise, investment wise, like all these different things that come with that industry. And then again, you get to a certain point where friends, family, other people reach out saying, I heard you do property, can you tell me a bit about it? Which I was happy to do, happy to help anybody that wanted to reach out and get involved. But then what I realised very quickly is a lot of people that were wanting to get involved maybe had a bit of cash to invest, but their money mindset wasn't great, or their financial plan wasn't there. And I didn't realise that when I was asking certain questions about it. Now, I wasn't giving advice because wasn't allowed to. My industry is heavily regulated, and so it should be. I was giving them more guidance on what I'd done. But for me to give them guidance, I was asking them questions like, well, why are you doing this and not that? And they didn't kind of know. They just had a bit of money and they thought, I've seen this property stuff and it looks like the way to go. Well, do you know you need to do this and you need to register for that, and tenancy agreements and letting agent, and they're going, bloody hell. Like, well, that's kind of how it works. So through that, I realised actually, not just these people that are reaching out, but there's a hell of a lot more people that could just do with help with financial side of things: planning, advice, mindset. Just the day-to-day person that's out working their arse off, coming home, and money's just disappearing.
Yeah.
You know, again, going back to just putting plans in place for it. So I think it just naturally progressed into, I loved having those conversations with people reaching out in property, and it then naturally, again, and then it gave myself the kick up the arse around COVID time when the football business stopped and the property and everything, that I went, well, this seems like, because I think in my 20s as well, I dipped into the part-time coaching, part-time property in a way, and people were saying, do it full-time, do it, and I'm like, just doesn't feel right. There's something about it that's not the full-time thing for me. I always knew I would probably go into business full-time at some point, but I wanted to wait and figure out what that was. And I think once I'd went, and again, self-awareness, understanding more about yourself, knowing I loved those conversations, I kind of naturally went, this is the full-time thing. This is the thing I can see myself doing 9 to 5, 9 to 7, 14-hour days, helping people out with their finances. Because I've made a lot of mistakes. But I've also seen the side of investments and getting your finances in place that really helps you. Yeah. And it does create choice, freedom, opportunity, and all the rest of it, and doors open. So I think it naturally progressed through the property and the financial advice.
I know, because I mean, we've spoke a couple of times around like gut instinct. We had a really good conversation, I think, the first time that we met. And it just sounds to me like you heavily trust, like when you say that doesn't quite feel right, a lot of individuals don't trust that enough. They end up jumping two-footed into it. Maybe feel like they made some mistakes, but also like they're then in the game. So if they're in the game, they're probably, as long as they don't quit the game altogether, then they're probably going to come out somewhere relatively decent. Whereas for yourself, you trusted that feeling, and obviously you said that you enjoy the financial advisory stuff more, and you were enjoying the conversation you were having. What was it about property that gave you that feeling that it wasn't the long-term player, wasn't what you wanted to do full-time?
Because I think I always saw property as, I'm here, this is my kind of 9 to 5 time here in front of my nose, and I like the fact that there's investments, assets, money-making money vehicles over here. If I brought that initial one over here and in front, it might not be as cool and shiny, and not that I'm like cheating the system or anything, but I'm doing something on the side that's working over here. Again, financial advice is a business, whereas property, people obviously have property businesses and run them full time, but for me, property was always a investment into an asset. And for that, I didn't want to have too much, I leverage letting agents, estate agent, I leverage as much as I can for the property side of things and make X amount each month from it. But that's what it always was for me. Again, the football coaching was very much a business you need to kind of put everything into, financial advice isn't really something you can outsource and leave over here while going over here. So I didn't see property for me as the full-time thing. Now, don't get me wrong, I've bought rental properties, I've sourced properties, I've flipped property, I've done quite a lot of what some people call strategies. I call them business models. I've done different types of businesses in property that you can very much go in full time in each one. But it just wasn't, it was always just a investment into an asset.
Because I guess like I'm probably just unraveling probably in my mind, like I can see why people see it as a business. If, for example, say like deal sourcing, it's like $3,000 a deal. That's probably more than what people are making salary wise. They just need to go out and find one deal a month, for example, and then it becomes very like, okay, like I can, rather than working 40 hours a week and getting $3,000, I can find a deal which I could technically work 160 hours in a month to just find this one deal. And it starts to become, I don't know, it's I can see why people could see it as a very attractive kind of like, I only need one deal and then I'm fucking sound.
And what I liked about that is when you were explaining it there, it was, I just have to go out and find one deal. Holy shit, that takes a while. And there's ups and downs and highs and lows, and your emotions high 1 minute because you think you've got a deal, and then they pull out 2 minutes later, but you've already got an investor lined up, and that all unravels and falls on its arse, and you've done 30 viewings that week just to get that one deal, and then it fell on its backside. So now you're making no money. So there's a hell of a lot more emotional involvement than just finding the one deal a month. And I think that's something that I went through even on a dip in my toe in part-time thing. And again, I think it's just about just going out and trying stuff. just do stuff
Yeah.
and see what sticks in a way. And what sticks is what you even when it's the shit times and your emotions have went really high because you're like, yes, I've got this deal, and then it falls through.
Yeah.
I'm going to go for the next one, and then I've got a viewing in an hour. Let's go.
Yeah.
Or get them straight back on right move or whatever it is you're doing to get. Whereas if you're not, and you're going, oh, that was shit. Oh, now what? Back to square one. It's maybe not going to be the right full. You know, you're not going to stick it out. And I think, for a lot of people, there's all these different strategies and business models in property, but it's also a very lonely game.
Yeah. Very
lonely. And again, it's depending on who you are. I'm an extrovert. I like being around people. My energy increases being around people and talking. So just going out doing viewings every day and speaking to one estate agent who's only giving you cryptic answers because they don't reveal how much it is, and they know you're a sourcer and it just didn't work for me. I wasn't getting that fulfillment selfishly in a way of helping people.
Yeah, I understand, mate. I like the way that you I guess you like reflected on the willingness to overcome adversity during that kind of thought process, because usually when people think it's easy and then they find out it's not, the level of expectations has been demolished because they think it's going to be really easy. Whereas if you're starting a business from scratch and you know that you're very much coming in with the mindset that, you know what, even if I look at like the gaming space for me, I put out a post about this, like it took me 20,000 hours in a competitive environment to become nuts at COD. If I'm going into business and I'm like, right, cool, it's going to take me 20,000 hours, which is, I think when I done, I think it's 25,000, so it's just under 3 years straight of just playing COD. It's like, right, cool. I need to play every day for like 12 hours a day for what is that, 6 years for me to get pretty nuts at something. Yeah. And I think when you start to adopt that mindset that it's like, cool, I just need to be in the game for this long, be fully immersed in it. And then when the hard shit's come, it's like, well, it's just part of the gig.
But I think what you say there again, coming back to this and about your mindset and your self-awareness and understanding what you're willing to, when you have the hard times, keep going and pushing through. And if you're not willing to do that, maybe it's not the right thing for you. I think, again, going on your 20,000 hours, in the sporting context, when I was doing the sports, it was the 10,000 hour rule and to become perfection at something, or perfect. But then what I realised is going through that is actually, and again, the whole saying was practice makes perfect. 10,000 hours of practice, you'll become... But that didn't make sense because perfect practice makes perfect. Practice doesn't make perfect. You could be practicing the wrong thing for 10,000 hours. And then actually you're not actually perfect at the thing you want to be because you've been practicing it wrong. So perfect practice makes perfect. And in that sense, when we're relating it back, if you've got the wrong mindset,
it's not perfect practice.
Then it's not, you're doing 20,000 hours or 10,000 hours to get this perfect, but your mindset's all messed up, or you don't have the right financial plan, or you don't have the right investment strategy, or you don't actually enjoy it, but you see everybody else do it and you think that's the only way to make money. So again, it comes back to your values. If your top value is I want to make a shitload of money, when you're not doing it, you'll probably fall away from it. So again, you have to figure out what it is you're trying to achieve, and it comes back down to back to probably my financial planning type thing. What you want to achieve and work back, then you're going to probably have perfect practice because it's going to be what you want to do.
Yeah, I resonate with that heavily, man. Because people used to call in my stream and they'd be like, "Oh, John, I've played since I was 10, but I'm still shit." And I'd be like, "Well, if you just sat and just played in your room for a few hours a night and you know just fucked around, or have you got like me in a competitive environment where you're getting ridiculed every single fucking day for every mistake that you make, that is pretty fucking toxic to actually be in, but you understand it's part of the long-term game where you're just sitting fucking around while you eat some chicken nuggets, do you know what I mean? Just getting your controller all greasy. It's like,
but again, it comes back to, again, that's what you're saying there, the sporting context for me. It's like when I had some of the higher level kids in the academies and stuff, when I was coaching them, I used to get frustrated because I had to get these kids to a level where it was elite versus elite. Because the only way you're going to progress is if you're playing against, getting ridiculed, getting things with the other elite players. That's how you're going to progress quickly, and it's the right practice in a way for you to get those hours under your belt. If you're doing it in a low level environment, or you're going about the practice in the wrong way, you're not going to get to that level.
100%, mate. How else did, out of curiosity, before we I guess touch a bit more on the financial advisory stuff, how else did sport benefit you within business from like a transferable skill aspect?
Oh, massive. I think biggest one is people skills, talking to people. Again, I was 16, 17, 18 talking to parents with kids and they're asking me how they're getting on, and I'm not bullshitting, but I'm having to then put in a pretty substantial kind of answer to their little pride and joy and how they're getting, and even just bringing people into the classes, how much it's costing, what they have to do, like what I expect of them, what they expect of me, level of service, everything like that. And then again, just going down to the actual coaching of the kids, you know, in a way, if you want to call it manipulation, I have to try and get the right words, sentences, phrases, and tone of voice over to you for you to understand that you have to kick the ball like this, not like that. And you need to run there, not there. And you need to put in hard work and you need to put in effort and you're going to get kicked in, but in a way where it's always positive and you're always enjoying it. Because as soon as you start, and again, that's probably one of the reasons I got into the coaching, the football, is that I had a few coaches when I was a kid that I hated because everything was doom and gloom, everything was shouting at you, and I hated playing football for a while. And I never wanted that to happen with any kids that I coached. So I think it's just getting across, how do I get you to do what I want you to do with just my voice and my words? Because that's all I've got.
And how did you work on that?
Again, probably, well, a lot of, you obviously go through your badges and everything like that. So they give you little bits on the training courses with the football, but feedback looping again. Going, I spoke to you like that tonight and you didn't respond. Right, you're this kind of kid or this kind of character, whereas if I say it to this wee kid, he'd have responded to it. Right, how do I need to speak to you? Because it's different to you. Everyone's individual. And I think just going through the hours and the years of coaching, you realise you actually can probably avatar and categorise kids very quickly for what they say and what they do and their thought process, their movements. Right, you're that kind of kid so I need to speak to you that way. And then when you got to the academy and elite level, you had to have that kind of intuition, gut feeling, if that's what you want to call it, again, very quickly to make sure they're doing the right things. Yeah,
because I'm thinking probably from a leadership method, or just leadership in general, the amount of people that maybe get it wrong because they have a one-shoe-fits-all leadership and they lead all the people the same. What would be your advice to those individuals to, I guess, where they would start to work on it that isn't just the feedback loop?
In terms of one shoe fits all, in terms of how they speak to people.
Yeah, I guess improving that aspect.
I suppose without feedback loop, in terms of what, literature, books.
Yeah, it could be. Yeah.
I think there's some great books out there with that type of thing. I think, sales books, entrepreneurial books, things like that really help figure out but I think, again, if you're saying certain things to people and they're leaving your job, they're leaving their employment, or you're not getting the right value out of them, or they're not doing the right there's something missing in the communication method. Something's happening there but again, a lot of people, like you say, are stuck and fixed in their way of I do it this way, this is my business, if you don't like it, leave. When really I think it probably again comes down to, and it's a hard one because it's your business and it's your baby in that sense, but what do they want out of it? Why are you here? Why do you want to get involved in this business with me and you want to work under me, if that's the kind of conversation? What are you getting out of this? Who are you and what do you want? And again, there's probably big questions I ask in the financial advice type thing, so it probably comes back to that. But at the end of the day, as well, with business and staff members and employees, and you're always going to have frogs that you have to kiss and you have to let go and fire and bring other people on. It's just the way the world works, I suppose.
That was one of the things I picked up on the first 20 minutes into the episode, where you literally just said, when it came to speaking to the kids or the parents, you're having to speak to the parent. You had at the front of your mind, what was most important to them, which is that their kids are pride and joy. It's all they care about. It's their little baba. And you have to ensure that individual feel like that you reciprocate that in the same way, that you equally care about the kid in a way of remembering their name, remembering what they actually done at practice, and being able to look at 30 different kids and be like, what did they actually do during that time period, and how can I relay that to a parent?
And I think in that sense, when you're talking about then how do they get better at it, and said books, and I was thinking, and you've just reminded me there, everyone should read the How to Win Friends and Influence People. And again, just on I think I'm probably, talk about different types of intelligence. I'm probably not very theoretical, book smart intelligent, but I would like to think I'm pretty socially intelligent. I will remember, one thing that I've got probably a big part in, that takes up a lot of space in my brain, is people's names. Faces and names. And I'll also make a conscious, but also it's very subconscious, I think, with me. I'll say your name. Hi John, how you doing? How you getting on today? Well, how are you getting on, Paul? But I'll very much say your name more than once as well. And I think where that came back to being quite concrete in my head is through that book. Because they talk about things like that a lot, being very personable and interpersonable. So, and again, it was the same with parents. I had to distinguish whose kid parent you were and blah, blah, and a lot of it was through your name.
Yeah.
Because I wouldn't be able to distinguish these otherwise.
Is there any other books that maybe people haven't heard of that you would recommend?
Probably from a lot of things we were touching on there in terms of self-awareness and the law of, again, I'm quite big in the law of attraction type stuff. Again, talking about doing things and think the way you think. The Secret's a great book that I really like. How to Win Friends and Influence People. I'm trying to think what other ones are really good.
I know you recommended Sapiens to me, which we had a good conversation around that, man. That really opened my eyes and kind of got me. Do you want to touch on a little bit about that?
Yeah, that's a fantastic book because it kind of comes from a really high level who we are. And I think you touched on a minute ago about like people's mindsets and why they do one thing over the other. And I think the Sapiens book got it over to me in a pretty easy way of your mind is just trying to keep you safe and secure. We've advanced, and again, talking in the Sapiens book, and that resonated with me, we've advanced far too quickly due to technology in it, from being hunter-gatherers in the woods to now being, you know, a society filled with abundance. But our brains haven't evolved that quick. So we're still trying to keep ourselves safe and secure for the lion and the tiger, when really there's no lion and tigers anymore. So who are we keeping ourselves safe and secure from? You don't want to spend that money on that course, or you don't want to go out at 2 o'clock in the morning to drive to, or you don't want to put in 6 hours just to get one bottleneck away, and you know, all these types of things. Because if you don't do it, it keeps you safe and secure, and you're secure in these 4 walls. And I think it's realizing that's one thing I took for the book, to go, that's just, and again, coming back to it, thoughts are just thoughts. A lot of people have a thought and go, I thought that, so that must be the way I'm thinking, or the way I feel, or that person isn't good for me because that thought's coming. Well, thoughts are just thoughts. You can tell them to F off, type thing. And I think that book was really good to really hammer home to me. Who are humans? What are we all doing, and why are we doing it? Yeah. And then who am I? What am I doing, and why am I doing it?
Yeah. Every time we talk about it, it gets further and further up my book list, mate. My book list is fucking huge, and it gets more. I need to give it a read, mate, because both times that we've spoken about it now, it's been class. The financial advisory stuff. Then, what's the plan? Where do you want to take it to? Like, what's the thought process behind it?
Again, like I say, with financial advice, it's just naturally progressed from probably the property investment as one single asset into now looking at advising, investing, planning holistically, not just from one vehicle. So that takes obviously a lot of different forms from the investment side, but it's not just about investing. It's about planning, protection. It's basically a foolproof way of making sure that whatever you want to achieve in life, you can. Yeah. Now, like I say, unfortunately, we're at a point now where we're not at school anymore. We're not at nursery. We're in this big bad world of work. We have to earn money. So what way can I earn it, keep it, and grow it the best way possible? And what are the principles I need, and what are the plans I need to put in place to be able to, for that to happen, to achieve that? Yeah. And also with that, if anything comes in my way to derail the plans or to stop it, what is the next plan for that not to derail it? Yeah. You know, if you're sick, you can't work, you know, you've not got enough money this month. Well, what's the plan for that? And I think it's just making sure that anyone that comes, any clients that reach out, we're always moving forward. We're always trying to achieve those goals. And again, I come back to, because again, it's about finances, it's financial planning. What I'm trying to create for clients is long-term sustainable wealth. I'm not trying to make them rich. I'm not trying to make them, you know, flash cash about. I'm trying to make them wealthy, but sustainably on a long-term basis. Yeah.
I would imagine there'll be not a lot of difficult conversations you'll have with clients maybe around that, but, and maybe that's just naivety, probably maybe from an age aspect, but what is like when you're sitting down with a client, what is the actual conversation? Like, what does it even look like? What does it consist of?
So first and foremost, it's like I kind of said there, it's like, what are you trying to achieve here? Like, what is it you want to do? What do you need to get better at? What is it you're struggling with? Yeah. First and foremost. Again, then it's things like, well, what if we put these plans in place, or how can I help you? And if I help you the way you want, what will your life now look like? What will you have? You know, so in a way, and again, it comes back to who I am, because I like those conversations. It's kind of getting people dreaming a bit. Like, what does it look like? What do you want? And then through that, probably asking, and again, it's a good part of it, and I like it, because you do get weird faces and people, you know, that you can see the barriers are up to start with, and then they come down as you get in. But it's probably asking questions and having conversations that you've probably never had before with anybody, not even your spouse or your partner. You know, and again, around money. So a lot of people are straight away all the barriers are up and they're shutting down.
Yeah.
But then when you try and get over to them why you're asking these questions and why it's important to them and their values,
Yeah.
then they go, oh, right, okay. Right, well, this is why. And then you get some really good juicy answers that really help. And I always say that I can't advise you on your finances until I know who you are and what it is you're trying to achieve. And a lot of people as well, it's different. I always say this as well, it's people are at different life stages that I talk to. And people that are in their 30s, 40s may have different goals, plans, ambitions than someone that, like, if I take myself in my early 20s. You know, I've spoke to people that are in their early 20s and I say, right, what's your goal and ambition? And they're like, don't know, mate, I'm just trying to work and get a bit of money. And I'm like, well, what you're probably then trying to achieve for even reaching out to me is, the way I describe it is just living above the standard of living line. You know, having a wee bit extra, you know, starting to create that wealth. Again, the way we society, in terms of the standard of living line, the way society views a fiver, like £5, pint of beer. You at some point down the line, whether it's 5 years, 10 years, you have the same value that society places on a fiver to £50. So the way that I spend a fiver and go, right, I've spent a fiver on that pint, you can buy a round for your pals and it still feels the same as that fiver. But then getting those habits, plans, disciplines over the years to get to the point where that's where your value is, you then don't spend 50 quid like it's a fiver. Because you've got the right habits. You've got the right mindset on money. You've got a financial plan. You know what you're trying to achieve. So again, it's just getting people into those conversations, I suppose.
For sure, mate. I mean, the thing that came front of mind for me was that there was a Hormozy video I watched, I think just when he sprung on the scene, and he was speaking about like everyone measures a stick differently in regards to money, and whatever your thought process is when you see £1,000, that could equate to X amount of your sticks. And I thought, like, back to when I was like growing up, it was like every stick equaled a Nando's. That's what I thought of it. It was like Nando's 12 quid, right, cool. You know, if I make 50 quid, that's like 4 Nando's, or like just about 4 Nando's. And I started to realise, probably as I'd kind of grown out of that, but when I started listening to maybe Hormozy, one of the things that was coming up to me was like, well, I'm in control of how much I want that stick to be. And the bigger my stick is, I guess the bigger conversations I'll have, probably the bigger people I'll access as well, because I'll be able to talk on a wavelength. It's not, you know, fucking short term, what's going to happen over the next couple of months, but in years and decades, which is always spoken about as well, and over a longer time horizon. What would be your piece of advice to someone wanting to, I guess, like, work on that, to like get their mindset into gear with a bigger view of a stick, or a bigger view of, you know, looking at money a bit differently? That's a purely worded question, by the way, but hopefully
I'm just trying to think. So, like, in a way, trying to get people thinking bigger.
Yes, looking at it a bit differently.
How would that come across? It's kind of one of those cliche answers, but firstly, what it is that you want to think bigger about. Everybody's got those dreams and goals. Sometimes they don't really say it, or they don't want, because they'll get ridiculed, or it's too big a dream. But I think it's about breaking that down to get to that point. Like, what is it you're really trying to achieve? And then breaking it down. I've done it even this week with one of my clients. It was a great conversation we had about, we really broke down how much he's investing a month that equates over a potential 10-year period, and how much that's going to be in 10 years. And you could see his face being like, wow. And that's what I loved about it. It was like, only in 10 years and I could have this amount in my investments, and this is what I could do with them in X, Y, and Z. So I think it's just about dreaming bigger, I suppose, isn't it? Really, it's not really something that I would have an actual action point on. Oh, if you do this or think like that, then you'll have a bigger stick. I think it's more just
being conscious,
and then being open to having those conversations, and being fully immersed in them. Because like I say, like, financial advisor, like, I wouldn't say like a therapist, but like, you've got to like be able to have a very honest discussion with a financial advisor about your money and what you're wanting to achieve from it, to then allow that stick to grow and that dream to grow. And then you put, like you say, we talked about it before, those plans in place to the minute detail on how it's achievable.
Makes a lot of sense, mate, for sure. And thank you for answering such a purely worded question. You mentioned earlier on about obviously looking to potentially bringing your first hire in the financial advisory stuff, what's the process, what's the thought process behind it? What's it kind of looking like just now, like in terms of where you want to take it? And what, I guess, like walking me through that first hire.
Yeah, so first and foremost, I'm not helping as many people as I want, and I should be. I fully believe in what I'm doing and how I'm helping people and how it makes people feel, the clarity, the stability, the security around what we talk about. And I'm just not getting out to see enough people just now. Because there are, like any business, there's tasks that should be, once you know how to do them, as we explained, should be outsourced. So it's now at a point where thankfully I should be and can bring somebody else on to do outsource certain tasks to allow me to do, from a business point of view, I suppose, the more income generating bums on seats tasks. I need to be in front of more people, and I'm not right now. I wouldn't say from no fault of my own, but just I also think there's a way in business you can think you're busy, but you're busy with the low end tasks instead of being busy with the high income generating high tasks. So it's essentially, that's the thought process behind bringing somebody on at this stage, just to free up some more time to help more people. What
are the tasks that you're looking to outsource?
A lot of the stuff is like we talked, it is probably more admin stuff. You do a meeting with a client, and I always say this quite rightly, the industry is heavily regulated. So there's a lot of regulation, paperwork, things that go on in the background to make sure that you're putting a client in the best possible position for the advice you're given. So with that comes a lot of admin paperwork in the background, which is fine, but I don't want to be doing the stuff that I don't need to, that can be outsourced. So that's probably, and again, then CRM systems are probably a big one. Again, you'll know yourself from your business, you can have 3 clients all wanting to do the same thing first and foremost, but every single stage of that case is at a different level, and it's keeping on top of every time I have a conversation with that client, I know where we left it off. It's just, standard kind of CRM and keeping track of where you're at with each case. And some cases are massive and really complicated and complex. Other cases are quite small and easy to get through. So being able to take that, and again, it goes back to that, once you're good at something, you know how it works, you take the thinking away from it. I don't need to think about that anymore. I can do the meeting, I can get all the notes I need, we can have the great dreaming conversations and put a plan in place. I can then pass it over, and data input. A lot of data input stuff. So we can pass that over to somebody else that can input the data and understand how to put it in a way that's regulatory right, but then also means that it's going to be the right advice and take it to business for the client. What are
bringing that admin individual, what are going to be the higher leverage tasks that you're looking to do? That is, obviously you're saying speaking to more people, but if you came up with a thought process of being able to, I guess, get more bums in seats, like you said, if you started thinking about that.
So again, marketing strategies, obviously I guess you're talking about there. So for me it is, and I've seen the benefit from it. Obviously you know it yourself more than anybody, the benefit the social media can provide. I don't believe I'm putting enough good content that's relatable out consistently. And I know I should be, because without being a bit egotist, I feel like things that I've done, thoughts that I've got, mindsets are what some people should be hearing. So I think first and foremost, not even from a lead generation marketing type, getting our bums on seats, just for people to understand that actually what they're thinking about around money isn't actually wrong, or it's not bad, or they should maybe be putting this in place. Just little, educational pieces of anything. And then again, probably more getting back to, because thinking about who I am, self-awareness myself, I like being out talking to people. It gives me energy. More networking events, getting out there and talking to more people in a kind of networking space. I don't do enough of that, or I fell away from it more because there's a lot more tasks that are admin type things and regulation and stuff it's taking up a lot of time, I suppose.
And I would definitely agree, by the way, like I'm sure everyone that will listen will agree as well. Any conversations I've had with yourself, it's always been incredibly educational, and people, like, when it comes to, I guess, like educating someone to a level where they trust you, they have that rapport, trust and respect, and they start wanting to potentially buy, like a lot of that will just come naturally through, like you're saying, the conversations you're having are resulting in a large amount of bums on seats, potential clients, actual clients. And people don't realize that their personal brand is just, you're having to do that process that you do with people, but just in front of camera and actually educating people in the same way. And yeah, I think having the mindset, like when I look at probably my personal brand, it's not necessarily about signing clients, even though that naturally happens, but it's about creating, you know, actual opportunities longer term, where majority of podcast guests come through my personal brand. And majority of people I meet that are doing, you know, more than me within business, had plenty more years in the game, people like yourself, for example, a lot of it, being able to see me probably every day on Instagram or on LinkedIn, it keeps it fresh in front of mind, and you become more and more aligned. Like that RTR, that rapport, trust and respect, just continues to stack.
And I think something that we spoke about previously that resonated with me, that you said about the more you're putting yourself out there on social media and talking about, whether it's just something that's a thought in your head that day and you're just talking through it, it's also a very good repel mechanism.
Yeah.
And actually you're repelling the people that probably won't fit your brand and your business correctly, but you're bringing in the people that it does resonate with.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people maybe don't realise that actually they think the repel part of it is the haters and the people giving them, you know, crappy, shitty messages and but actually that from your time aspect, it's not a bad thing.
Yeah.
And so that's something that I know we spoke about that really resonated with me. But yeah, in terms of this taking on staff members, it's just so I can get out there more, but also because that's what I enjoy. You're talking there about kind of your brand and bringing people on and signing clients. That's a byproduct for me. That's a kind of nice, you know, and without disrespecting bringing a client on and helping them out planning wise, like I just like the conversations I have with people. Like even doing this today, like it fills me with energy. I enjoy it. Looking forward to doing it. So I think coming out and doing things like this more, even from putting myself out there, but not even just putting myself out there, just having this conversation with you.
We Ryan Quinn podcast coming in.
No, I don't know about that. I see how much work you have to put into this one. I don't know if I can do that as well. That's another plate I need to spin. I don't think so. I'll just come on as guest.
Yeah,
I'll do that.
It's a much easier role, mate. I can say that wholeheartedly. Yeah, it's interesting though. I think like the paradox of, like you said, it's not necessarily about signing the clients, but being able to just help people have more conversations. The paradox is that it generates more clients, like it always.
It's just a byproduct.
Yeah.
It's just a byproduct. And that's fine, and it's great that is a byproduct of it. But I think, and it's probably the big phrase that I get out of most people, is giving people that financial clarity. Whether it's they're starting their financial journey in terms of they've got money that they're spending every month that they want to put to better use, or on the other side, you know, from of a life perspective, they're maybe needing retirement, but they don't know what it's going to look like. They've got, you know, their pensions all over the place. They've got 5 different pensions with 5 different companies, and they're all over the place. And they don't know how to get them and access them and what it means. And it's just giving the clarity of, this is what we can do with it. And this is what your retirement's going to look like, and you'll be okay. People just going, right, okay. So it's two ends of the spectrum. People starting out and people nearing the end of their working life, but it's just that clarity and I describe it like taking your head out the sand or just opening the doors. Just going, all right, that's beyond the door. Right, that's fine, I get it. It's not as daunting or scary anymore. Yeah. And
I know obviously from talking to you as well that you do, which I imagine just from this conversation alone is something that's very energy positive, is doing things like workshops for communities, coming in and educating and helping people and stuff like that as well. You know, what's some of the impacts that you've had probably from that avenue? Oh,
that's massive. And again, it's just probably going back to my job previously in my 20s and the sports coaching type stuff. I do as much as I can go back into the schools and do kind of financial workshops for the kids. And you find actually doing financial workshop for the kids, the teachers take just as much away, you know, which is good as well. But again, it's going back to that whole, why did I get involved in sports and football? Is because I had a couple of bad experiences. Why do I want to go back into the schools and help the kids with the finance? Because we didn't really get taught that at school. You know, nobody really teaches you any of these things. So it's just about giving the kids a little bit more. And to be fair, I've went into probably the last couple of months into the more deprived areas where, without, you know, a bit of or putting a kind of label on it, where you may find that these kids might need a bit more help and mindset around finances and money. And again, probably at the end of the day, it's just extremely rewarding.
Yeah. That's what I was going to ask. How's it been in that kind of environment?
Yeah, it's really rewarding. It's an environment I know well, you know, going into the schools, working with the kids. So it's just about tapering it from sports to finances and how you then work that. Again, talking about what do I want you to know by the end of this and how do I get you to know it? Yeah. So again, I go into the schools with like dartboards and paper money and like all these different games, but for all they might be throwing the darts at the dartboard, it's all related to getting money, saving money, investing money. If you've got a dart on this, you know, number, then you can invest money into that pot and that'll grow. And the kids really get involved in it and they enjoy it. So
makes a lot of sense, mate. Makes a lot of sense. Obviously, we're about an hour and 10 minutes in already, which is mad.
Only halfway through, are we?
Only halfway through. And I guess like a couple of questions to start rounding it up. Question I ask majority of guests now is that, you know, a 19-year-old that's wanting to come into business that is maybe even just started his own business. Doesn't matter what it's in, but maybe reflecting back on when you first came into business, what is a piece of advice that you wish you heard then that you would give to them now?
Don't relate it too quickly to your self-worth.
Okay.
I.e., if that business fails, that you're a failure, try another one. Explore it with a kid-like enjoyment, you know, like a kid out in the playground running about, playing with their pals, explore it like that. Money's not the be-all and end-all. It helps you open doors and creates choice and freedom, but there's so many ways to skin a cat. You don't just have to make money one way. There's so many ways, and you'll probably find at 19 to 29, you'll have evolved and changed, and you potentially might not even be in the same business or job that you then do at 29, because I know that's probably the journey I've been on. But keeping it very open-minded with an kind of, like I say, that exploration type mindset, and try as much as you possibly can, enjoy it.
That's awesome advice, mate. Honestly, man, even when I reflect on like my first business failing and stuff like that and thinking like, fuck man, I pure fucked this up, like that's my first baby and blah blah blah, and it really fucking could not matter less. Like it's only a positive impact. And yeah, no, I think that's amazing advice, mate. In terms of people wanting to find you, platforms, obviously content, stuff like that, where can people find you, mate?
Yeah, so Instagram, Ryan Quinn Wealth Management, follow me there. LinkedIn as well, you can find me on that. But again, most of the things I put just go across all platforms. They're probably the easiest ways to find me. Websites, Quinn & Co Wealth Management, so you can find me on the website, or drop me an email, which is again on the website as well. So yeah. Love that, mate. But honestly, it's been a fantastic episode, brother. Honestly, thank you so much for coming on, mate. Tremendous amount of value. We'll need to do a part 2 because I feel like we only just scratched the surface, man. Totally. But yeah, no, thank you very much. Thank you to Paul as well. If you're listening on Spotify, trips, make sure you leave a wee 5-star rating. I mean, if you really did enjoy it. If you're on YouTube, make sure you subscribe, as we've got episodes coming out every 2 weeks. And yeah, thanks again, Ryan, mate. What a bang episode. Appreciate it.